Welcome back, deep divers. We always try to bring you fascinating topics here, but this one might just take the cake.
Oh, definitely fascinating. And yeah, maybe a bit uncomfortable for some too.
But hey, sometimes a little discomfort can be a good thing, right? Especially if it leads to some major breakthroughs in how we understand our relationship with money.
I completely agree. It's about pushing past those initial wait, what moments to get to the real aha moments that can shift things in a big way.
So get ready, because today we are diving deep into the psychology of why some people, maybe even you listening right now, seem to be almost addicted to being broke.
Yeah, addicted to broke. It's a bold statement, I know.
It is. And we're not throwing that term around lightly. We're going to explore how our subconscious mind can actually be working against us, even when consciously we're all about prosperity and financial freedom.
It's this whole hidden world of beliefs and patterns operating beneath the surface that can really show a wrench in our financial goals.
And that's exactly what we're uncovering today. We're going to lay out those hidden patterns for you and give you some powerful starting points for actually changing them.
Because the good news is, awareness is the first and often the biggest step towards change.
We are drawing from some really insightful concepts around how our subconscious minds work, plus this intriguing approach called the Billionaire Brain Wave that focuses on literally rewiring your brain for financial abundance.
And what's super important to note right from the get-go is that this isn't about blaming anyone, it's about understanding.
Right, it's not about judging yourself or feeling bad about past choices. It's about shining a light on these hidden patterns so you can make conscious choices moving forward.
Exactly. Because so often we see this huge disconnect between what we want financially and what actually plays out in our lives.
Like you consciously want to be saving more, investing wisely, earning more, all of that. But then you find yourself kind of magnetically drawn back to those same old frustrating financial situations.
And it can be so confusing and disheartening when that happens. Like, what am I doing wrong?
And that's where we're going to offer a totally new perspective. What if it's not that you're doing something wrong, but that a part of you deep down is actually kinda okay with the struggle?
Okay, I know that sounds crazy at first. Who would choose financial hardship? But it's not about conscious choice. It's about what feels familiar, even safe, to your subconscious mind.
So get ready, deep divers. We are about to explore some potentially uncomfortable but incredibly liberating truths about our relationship with money.
And remember, we are all on this journey together. We're here to support you, guide you, and give you the tools to start rewriting your financial story.
Okay, let's really unpack this idea of being quote-unquote comfortable with financial struggle. It might sound totally backwards, but stick with us here.
Because when we look at it through the lens of how our brains actually operate, it starts to make sense. You see, our brains have this primal drive for survival, right? And a big part of that is sticking with the known, the familiar.
Right, even if that familiar isn't exactly enjoyable, it's that whole better the devil you know kind of thing.
Exactly. So even if what's familiar is financial hardship, maybe that's what your brain has learned to interpret as safe.
And I think it's so important to emphasize that we're not talking about, like, enjoying struggle or anything like that.
Definitely not. It's about understanding that our brains can equate familiar with safe, even if that familiar is actually uncomfortable or even painful.
Like, think back to your childhood. If you grew up in a household where money was always a source of stress or tension or worry,
Yeah, maybe there were constant arguments about money or always that fear of not having enough.
that becomes your brain's baseline, its normal setting. It's what it learns to expect.
And then as adults, we might carry those subconscious patterns with us without even realizing it.
And it's not your fault if that's the case, right? It's just what your brain learned way back when. But the good news is, even though those patterns might be deep-seated, we can learn to change them.
We absolutely can. And one of the first steps is simply recognizing if any of those patterns are at play in our lives.
So let's talk about some signs, some red flags that might indicate someone has this kind of subconscious resistance to financial well-being. And the first one is self-sabotage.
Yeah, self-sabotage. We see this all the time. Someone gets a raise, a bonus, maybe they even win a bit of money.
They finally have a little breathing room financially.
Exactly. And then almost immediately, it's like they find ways to get rid of that extra money.
Like they just can't stand having it.
It's like their internal financial thermostat is set to broke, and if it goes above that, the system kicks in to bring it back down.
Wow, that's such a great analogy, the broke thermostat.
Yeah.
And this can show up as impulsive spending or suddenly having all these unexpected emergencies that drain the funds.
It's like if the subconscious is saying, nope, this isn't our normal. Let's get back to what we know.
And that can be so incredibly frustrating, especially if you're consciously trying to improve your financial situation.
Absolutely. And it brings us to another big sign, identity attachment.
This one is fascinating. It's this idea that some people build their whole sense of self around the struggle, the grind.
Yeah, they identify as the underdog, the one who always has to work harder, hustle more.
And then, ironically, when things start to get easier, it can actually feel threatening to that identity.
It's like a part of them is afraid of losing that part of themselves or of being seen differently by others.
It's wild how these subconscious dynamics play out, isn't it?
It really is. And then there's another piece that can be super uncomfortable to face.
Mm.
Discomfort with success.
This one hits home for a lot of people. It's that feeling of anxiety or even guilt when things start to go well financially.
Yeah, like it's almost too good to be true and they're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
It's like they don't trust that good things can actually last.
And that can lead to self-sabotaging behaviors, consciously or unconsciously, to bring things back to that familiar, even if less comfortable, level.
So we've got self-sabotage, identity attachment, and discomfort with success. What's next on the list of signs?
Well, there's the one that probably resonates with a lot of people. Repeating patterns.
Ugh, yes. The dreaded repeating patterns. This is where it feels like no matter how hard you try, you keep ending up back in the same financial mess.
You make a budget, you try to save, but somehow you always seem to end up back at square one.
And that can be so demoralizing. It's like you're stuck in a financial Groundhog Day.
And it's a big clue that there might be some deeper subconscious beliefs at play that are driving those repeating patterns.
It's like your conscious efforts are being undermined by this whole other operating system running in the background.
Exactly. And then finally, there's the sign of resistance to change.
This one can be a bit tricky, right? Because sometimes change is hard, even if it's good for us.
Definitely. But what we're talking about here is more than just a general discomfort with change. It's a strong emotional reaction, maybe even defensiveness, when someone offers financial advice or suggests new possibilities.
It's like they're allergic to anything that challenges their current financial reality.
It's not always conscious, but it can be a real barrier to making positive changes.
So we've got these 5 potential signs: self-sabotage, identity attachment, discomfort with success, repeating patterns, and resistance to change. If any of these are ringing true for you, don't worry, you're not alone. And more importantly, there are ways to break free.
Absolutely. Awareness is the first crucial step, and we're going to get into the how-to of changing these patterns in a bit. But first, let's take a closer look at how these patterns actually get wired into our brains in the first place.
Okay, so let's talk about these so-called neural pathways of lack. It sounds a bit technical, but it's actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah, think of your brain like a giant network of roads. And every time you have a thought or do something, it's like driving down one of those roads.
So the more you think or do something, the more well-worn that road becomes.
Exactly. And with money, if you've spent years thinking and acting from a place of scarcity, those pathways become super strong.
Like superhighways of lack.
Right. So those thoughts like money doesn't grow on trees, or there's never enough, or rich people are bad, become your brain's automatic go-to responses.
They become the default setting.
And it's not just about having these thoughts now and then. It's the repetition, the constant reinforcement that really wires them in.
Okay, so we've established that these subconscious patterns exist and how they become so ingrained. Now let's get into how they actually play out in our everyday lives, how they actually sabotage our finances.
This is where it gets really interesting, because we start to see the subconscious mind almost like a puppet master, subtly influencing our decisions and actions.
Yeah, and one of the key players in this is something called the Reticular Activating System, or RAS.
The RAS. Think of it as your brain's personal filter. It's constantly sifting through the millions of bits of information you're bombarded with every second.
So it's like our brain's spam filter, but for real life.
Kinda, yeah. But instead of filtering out junk mail, it's filtering out information that doesn't match our existing beliefs and expectations.
So how does that relate to money and all this subconscious stuff we've been talking about?
Well, if your RAS is programmed for scarcity, meaning you deeply believe money is hard to come by and hard to keep, it's going to filter your reality accordingly.
So you're more likely to notice those low-paying job postings or the negative news about the economy or reasons why a particular financial strategy won't work for you.
Exactly. And it's not that the other information isn't out there, the opportunities, the positive news, the strategies that do work. It's that your brain is literally tuning them out.
Wow, so our brain is literally looking for evidence to support our existing beliefs about money, even if those beliefs are negative or limiting.
It's constantly seeking validation for its own internal map.
Hmm.
And this leads to the very real phenomena of self-fulfilling prophecies.
Okay, tell me more about that. How do these mental patterns actually manifest as negative outcomes in our lives?
Well, when you deeply believe that money is scarce and you're not good with it, it naturally influences your decisions. You might make choices based on fear and lack rather than abundance and possibility.
Like maybe you take the first job offer that comes along, even if it's not a great fit or doesn't pay well, because you're afraid of not having any income at all.
Right. Or maybe you avoid investing because you're convinced you'll just lose money, even if there are solid low-risk options available.
It's like your subconscious is calling the shots, even if your conscious mind is trying to do things differently.
And beyond our decisions, it can affect how we show up in the world.
What do you mean by that?
Hmm. Well, our beliefs about money can unconsciously influence our body language, our tone of voice, even the energy we project.
So we might be subtly signaling to others that we're not comfortable with money or that we don't believe we deserve to have it.
Exactly. And that can impact our earning potential, our relationships with clients or customers, even our ability to attract opportunities.
It's like our subconscious is creating this whole reality around money that reinforces those limiting beliefs.
It's a powerful feedback loop. And it's why it's so important to address those beliefs directly if we want to create lasting change.
You shared a story earlier about a client who received a bonus, and it really brings this to life. Would you mind sharing that with our listeners?
Sure. This particular client had a long history of financial struggles. She worked really hard, but just never seemed to get ahead.
Like she was always living paycheck to paycheck.
Exactly. And then she got this unexpected $10,000 bonus at work.
That must have felt amazing.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But within a few months, it was all gone.
What? How did that happen?
Well, when we dug deeper, it wasn't that she had some major emergency or anything like that. It was a series of smaller purchases, justified expenses, things that felt urgent in the moment but weren't really necessary.
It's like she couldn't handle having that extra cushion, that financial buffer.
Exactly. It felt so out of alignment with her normal, her sense of self. Her subconscious just couldn't reconcile it.
So it found ways to bring her back to that familiar state of financial scarcity.
Right. And this brings us to this really powerful concept of identity.
Identity. How we see ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are.
And how those stories can actually shape our financial reality.
So you're saying that if we identify as someone who's bad with money or always broke, then that's what we're more likely to experience.
It's not as simple as that. But our self-image does play a huge role. If our actions start to contradict our core identity, it can create this internal conflict, what psychologists call cognitive dissonance.
It's like our brain is saying, wait a minute, this isn't how it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to be successful with money.
And to resolve that conflict, we might unconsciously sabotage our progress or find ways to revert back to what feels more congruent with our self-image.
So in essence, we might be subconsciously holding ourselves back from financial success because it doesn't fit with who we believe we are.
It's a powerful concept, and it explains why sometimes just changing our behavior isn't enough. We had to change the underlying belief system too.
Okay, this is all starting to feel a bit heavy, but I know there's hope here. We can change these patterns, right?
We absolutely can. And this is where the good news comes in. Have you ever heard of neuroplasticity?
Neuroplasticity, that sounds familiar. Isn't that about how our brains can change and adapt?
Exactly. It's this amazing ability of our brains to form new connections, new pathways throughout our entire lives.
So it's not like we're stuck with these old patterns forever.
Not at all. Your current financial situation, it's not a reflection of some inherent limitation or flaw. It's a reflection of past programming.
So those neural pathways of lack we talked about, those can be changed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can literally rewire our brains for financial abundance. And that's the whole premise behind this billionaire brainwave approach we mentioned earlier.
Okay, let's dive into that. What does this billionaire brainwave rewiring process actually involve?
Think of it as a 4-step program for upgrading your internal financial software, so to speak.
I love that. Upgrading our internal financial software. What's step one?
First, we have conscious reprogramming. This is about actively identifying and challenging those limiting beliefs about money we've been talking about.
So becoming aware of those negative thoughts and replacing them with more empowering ones.
Exactly. Then comes subconscious rewiring. This is where we use powerful techniques like visualization, affirmations, and even mindfulness practices to actually create those new neural pathways.
So we're literally reshaping our brains through focused intention and repetition.
Precisely. And then there's identity evolution. This is about consciously crafting a new self-image, a vision of yourself that fully embraces financial well-being.
It's like we're becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts and manages money well.
And finally, there's behavioral alignment. This is where we start taking consistent actions that support our new financial identity and beliefs.
So it's not just about thinking positive thoughts, it's about walking the walk, too.
Exactly. And this whole process, it leverages what's called experience-dependent neuroplasticity.
Okay, that's a mouthful. Break that down for me.
It basically means that our brains are constantly being shaped by the experiences we have and where we focus our attention.
So if we consistently focus on abundance and take actions that support our financial goals, our brains will literally rewire themselves accordingly.
Right. It's like building muscle, but for your financial mindset.
I love that. Financial mindset muscle. Okay, I am ready to start pumping that financial iron. So let's get down to some practical steps. The material outlines 6 specific techniques that anyone can start using right now. Let's walk through them. What's number 1?
The first one is pattern interruption. This is all about catching those automatic negative thoughts about money as they pop up.
So like those I can't afford that or I'm terrible with money kind of thoughts.
Exactly. And the key is to interrupt that thought pattern before it has a chance to spiral.
So it's like hitting the pause button on that old unhelpful programming. What do we do once we've hit pause?
You can ask yourself a different question, one that opens up possibility instead of shutting it down.
So instead of I can't afford that, it's how could I afford that?
Exactly. Or you can replace the negative thought with a positive affirmation.
Something like I'm learning to manage money well, or I'm attracting abundance into my life.
Exactly. It's about shifting the momentum, changing the direction of the energy.
I love it. Okay, what's the next technique?
The second one is visualization with emotional intensity.
Visualization. This is more than just daydreaming, right?
Right. It's about actively engaging all your senses, feeling the emotions of already having what you desire.
So it's not just seeing yourself in a big house or driving a fancy car. It's about feeling the sense of security, the joy, the freedom.
Exactly. And those emotions are key because they activate your brain's reward system, which helps to strengthen those new neural pathways even faster.
So it's not just about thinking it, it's about feeling it. That makes a lot of sense. What's next on the list?
Number 3 is environment design. This is about consciously creating an environment that supports your financial goals.
So this is about more than just decluttering our desks, right?
Right. It's about surrounding yourself with things that inspire you, motivate you, and reinforce your new beliefs about money.
So that could mean reading books or listening to podcasts about financial success.
Or maybe it's following inspiring people on social media or having conversations with people who have a healthy relationship with money.
And maybe also limiting exposure to things that trigger our scarcity mindset.
Exactly. So less doom and gloom news, less complaining about money, less time spent with people who constantly reinforce a lack mentality.
It's like we're creating this whole ecosystem that supports our financial growth. Okay, what's technique number 4?
This one's called identity statements. These are powerful affirmations that help you bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to be.
So it's like speaking your future self into existence.
In a way, yes. You create these statements that start with, I am becoming, or I am the kind of person who...
So for example, I might say, I am becoming the kind of person who attracts abundance effortlessly, or I am the kind of person who manages money wisely and generously.
Exactly. And the key is to repeat these statements regularly, with conviction and feeling.
It's like we're programming our subconscious mind with this new identity, this new reality. What's number 5?
This one is all about micro wins. It's the idea of celebrating small victories along the way.
Because let's be honest, big financial goals can feel really daunting sometimes.
They can. So instead of getting overwhelmed, we focus on those small, achievable wins that build momentum and confidence.
So maybe it's saving a small amount of money each day, or negotiating a discount on a purchase, or finding a creative way to earn a little extra cash.
Exactly. These micro wins give your brain concrete evidence that you are capable of making positive changes.
They're like little stepping stones on the path to bigger financial goals. I love it. Okay, what's the final technique?
The last one is community reinforcement. This is about surrounding yourself with people who support your vision and lift you up.
Because let's face it, negativity can be contagious.
It can. So if you're constantly surrounded by people who are complaining about money or reinforcing those scarcity beliefs, it's going to be much harder to make progress.
So find your tribe, your people who believe in abundance and support your financial dreams.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a huge group. Even one or two supportive people can make a big difference.
This has been such an insightful deep dive, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface of this fascinating topic. But before we wrap up, I want to acknowledge that breaking free from these deeply ingrained patterns, it can be challenging. It takes effort and patience.
It does. And it's important to approach this process with self-compassion. These patterns didn't develop overnight, and they won't disappear overnight either.
So be gentle with yourself, celebrate those small wins, and don't get discouraged if you have setbacks along the way.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination.
And it's a journey worth taking, because when we address those underlying subconscious patterns, we create the foundation for lasting, sustainable financial well-being.
Absolutely. The tools and strategies for managing money, they become so much more effective when they're aligned with a healthy, empowered mindset.
So to all our deep divers out there, remember, you have the power to change your financial reality. It starts with awareness, it takes consistent effort, but it is absolutely possible.
And we're here to support you every step of the way.
And on that note, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. The question isn't whether you can become financially successful. The real question is, are you willing to become the kind of person who is comfortable with success?
What does that version of you look like? How does it feel? Sit with those questions, let them guide you, and watch as your financial reality begins to transform.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and inspiration to take your financial journey to the next level.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And keep believing in your own infinite potential for abundance.
We'll see you soon.
Bye for now.